All right, so Early Birds is meeting on Sunday mornings as usual, 9:30 on Zoom. And the link is in the weekly email and on the website. And we're now doing the book, Your Soul's Plan, the life or how you planned your life before you incarnated. So we've been trucking through it. We've been doing it for 2 weeks and we've only gotten through the introduction. But it's really quite enlightening as far as the introduction is concerned. It sets the premise for the rest of the book, of course. And today, don't forget, there's a potluck after service. And those of you who did not know about it, you're still welcome. From the looks of it, there's going to be plenty of food for everybody. So please come. Upcoming speakers today is Peggy Shinn. Next Sunday, I'll be speaking, and I'm going to speak on basically the feminine aspect of God, since it is Mother's Day, after all. So the divine feminine. And then we have Reverend Kamatara on the middle of the month, and I'll speak again, and we have Peggy Shinn on the 29th. A double header this month. We're looking forward to both of these. Mesilla Valley Chorale is having a concert next Sunday, the 15th, and they're celebrating their 50th anniversary. Tickets are $10 and may be purchased by purchased from Judy Bethman or at the door. And lastly, our prayer team remains ready to serve and support you. You may submit a prayer request via our webpage. We do have a box in the back. If you choose to fill out one of those, please give it to me at the end of the service or while we're over there so that I can get that passed along as well. We meet on Tuesday afternoons at 4:15, and we know that the power of prayer knows no limits, and so you may want to join us at 4:15 in your quiet space and join in with a prayer and share that. And so now we have our invocation. So just right now, this moment, this instant, we affirm and acknowledge the presence of that one, that divine, that is the underpinning of everything in this universe, that oneness that experiences through us, with us, by us and for us. So we know that today, the same creative source is flowing through everyone and everything throughout this service and bringing just the right and perfect message for us at this time. And for that, we give thanks. Now, please stand if you're able for our Song of Joy. And this is the Song of Joy that was composed by our very good friend. I'm going to drag it out.
I'm ready.
He's ready. He's ready. Doug Adams. Yes. Thank you.
It's all about spirit, spirit, spirit from now on. It's all about spirit, spirit, spirit from now on. It's all about the spirit. If you listen, you can hear it. The spirit from now on. It's all about love, love, love from now on. It's all about love, love, love from now on. It's all about the love from within and from above. Love from now on. It's all about joy, the joy, Joy from now on. It's all about joy. Joy. Joy from now on. Outside the storm is raging, we got joy at our foundation. Joy from now on. It's all about spirit. Spirit. Spirit from now on. It's all about spirit. Spirit. Spirit from now on. It's all about the spirit. If you listen, you can hear it. The spirit from now on. Let's say that again. It's all about the spirit. If you listen, you can hear it. The spirit from now on. You can say that again. It's all about the spirit. If you listen, you can hear it. The spirit from now on.
Yeah, there we have it. All right, let's say our vision, mission, and affirmation. If you can't see this because I'm in the way, it's also on this sheet of paper. Anyway, our vision is to elevate spiritual consciousness in our world. Our mission, to support individuals' spiritual quests through celebration, study, counsel, loving fellowship, and service. And our affirmation. I affirm that all my needs are met in the divine, as are the needs of this spiritual community. We are inspired, supported, and blessed to be the place where love shows up. All is well, all is well, all is well. Yes, and so now we are ready for our musician again. Please welcome Doug Adams for our special music number 1.
I can't tell you how thrilling it is to hear everybody singing along on that. That was a very recent song, Spirit. And to have it come through, just walking around, and then to hear everybody singing it together, it's just thrilling. Thank you. This song is also very, very new. It's almost a world premiere. I've played it for a few people. But it came to me right around Easter. It's called It's Springtime Again. The rabbit, the egg, the tortoise, the hare. Today, a leaf on a branch that was bare. Soon all of the branches on all of the trees will be covered with green and bird nest and bees. Bees that hum and birds that trill return from their flight from the dark winter's chill. They trill and they tweet and they chirp and they squawk and they flutter for cover at the sight of a hawk. Passover, Easter, the phoenix, Aphrodite, religions and traditions, some forgotten, some still mighty. We all harmonized with the world and her spinning long before the time known as in the beginning. The stones rolled away. There's an angel by the cave. A rose sprouts from a cactus and out of the grave. and the lads still sing loud, for their maidens fair, the glory of the girl with the flowers in her hair. Aries spins round and declares, I am the first in this procession. All return to life again. And the clouds play leapfrog, and the frogs pray for rain. And everyone knows that it's springtime again. Yes, the clouds play leapfrog, and the frogs sing for rain. And everyone knows that it's springtime again. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. So I was telling the group in Early Birds that I worked very hard at finding the right reading for today, and even after I found it, I didn't believe it. And so I tried to find another reading, and I still couldn't find another reading. So I'm going to read the reading that came to me. And this is from the book. Some of you have heard me read from this before. It's called Oneness. You can guess what it's about. And really, this is written to you as an individual, so to speak. It says, the question is, are you willing to risk relinquishing all that you know, the entire structure of the belief system that defines and constricts your reality, for the chance that you may experience the perspective of your expanded self? Are you willing to acknowledge the truth as your experience has shown it to be may not be the entire picture? Are you willing to consider the possibility that all you may value could in fact be worthless in the higher sense? Are you willing to accept that you are in fact ready for this journey? The journey to oneness, of course. By virtue of the fact that you are even considering such questions, know that the process has indeed begun. It is not a question of if, so much as a question of how and at what pace you will proceed. From the perspective of being immersed in a linear physical reality, your challenge now is in your willingness to risk that the information that resonates to you as truth is actually truth. And that is your objective in this stage in your development, is to relinquish your hold on the limitation imposed by the reality that you have known it to be, or as you have known it to be. You are here to consider and ultimately to embrace the full multidimensional spectrum of your beingness as that which you are. You are here to begin to experience that expanded sense of self, and to walk in the fullness of that state of beingness one step at a time. At this moment, you are all you are yet to become, for time as you know it to be is not a factor in what is transpiring in what you consider to be the now. All that is to happen has happened energetically. What is left to achieve is the physical manifestation of that expression of energy. This would explain why, at times, you are seemingly drawn to a particular set of circumstances. This would explain why you experience what you would consider to be synchronicity. And this would explain why you experience a sense of disharmony when you resist suggestions that nudge you to act upon certain opportunities. Time as you know it to be, is moving forward at an unprecedented pace. Events appear to be crammed into an improbably short space, and at times seem to be happening simultaneously which in fact they are. It is crucial, as your rendezvous with oneness draws you ever nearer, that you come to completion with the life themes that tether you to this reality. It is crucial that you attain a state of detachment from the energy charges that have magnetized you habitually throughout your lifetime. It is crucial that you recognize the common thread in the web of dramas that you have woven that continue to ensnare you. And it is crucial that you allow yourself the grace of your own humanness in responding to these recurring situations, and love yourself for it. When you are able to stand back from the overview of the dramas in which you have played a starring role and see yourself as the award-winning performer that you truly are, you are well on your way to completing the journey. Until you have mastered what you have come here to experience, the level of beingness that seeks to integrate you in its journey to oneness cannot do so. And so it is. And now, Peggy, back in the USA.
Thank you, Edward. Wow, what a reading. Now, I hope you appreciate, Edward, why I don't dictate to my platform assistants what they are to read. This was fabulous and deep and profound. I'm not sure that my talk's going to be quite so deep and profound as that, but I appreciate that you have added to it greatly. So I got back last Friday morning about 5 a.m. into my home, and I had that same afternoon the first of 3 funerals that weekend. It's part of why I came back at the time that I came back. The last of the 3 I officiated at, and they were all at the UU. What a marathon of memorials they had that weekend. And I was kind of glad to be the last of the 3 in that respect. But a woman came up to me after that service, and I had a lot of people come up to me. There were a number of people there from the UU because the person who had passed away was a friend of mine for quite a number of years, about 15 years. And I had been asked to officiate at his service. They don't have anybody in their pulpit right now anyway, but Nancy Anderson, their former minister, had done the other 2. Excuse me. Back in the land of allergies, and I realized in the song they were singing earlier that I couldn't get to the spirit. So excuse me. Anyway, this woman came up to me afterwards and she said, I really believe that we all need to continue to grow spiritually. And I said to her, yeah, we all have our growing edge. The question is, does it need to be filed off or does it need to be filled in? And when I said that to her, it just, that just came through me. I just made that up on the spot when I answered her question there, and or responded to her comment, I guess I should say. And I decided that's what I'm going to talk about at Wellspring. This is God bringing that through me. I need to have that be my topic, perhaps. And I was told by Edward also that I got a promotion today. He said that his notes said Reverend Peggy. So I said, don't worry, it happens all the time. But at any rate, we're always growing spiritually, whether we know it or not, whether we made a conscious decision about it or not. And we always have this growing edge of some sort that either needs to be filled in or filed off. In my case, I think a lot of it is filing me back. I've got too much going on, too much happening. So you can think about this today, about your growing edge, what it might be, how you might want to respond to the call to it. All these things that Edward just read to us about are crucial. I love that word at the end there. It's crucial to our growth, crucial to our expansion, crucial to our decision to be light workers on the planet, I guess I would say. And looking around the room and realizing that most of us are of a certain age, that there isn't a lot of numbers left on the calendar for the cruciality of this to come home to us. as Brene Brown would say, you know, the universe is about to tap us on our shoulder and say, I'm not effing with you here. You're half dead, you know? And so we ought to be looking at that from that standpoint, not from the standpoint of, you know, sadness or morbidity or whatever, but from the standpoint of the inspiration and the aspirations of what we have left in our lives that are ours to do. So that's where the growing edge comes in again, where we are not having all the time in the world to do everything. So let's pick what's the right thing. Let's pick what's ours. What that plan from your pre-birth, your pre-incarnation was that you're reading about in the introduction to the book. What might have been that plan? What's calling to your heart? What's calling to your heart that's yours to do? So another way for me to think about the growing edge, the sort of metaphor or graphic of it is, it's like if I spilled this bottle of water on the top of this tabletop here. It's going to follow some gravity. It's going to follow some law of nature. It's going to seek its own level. It's going to talk back to me. It has its own way about it, but there are ways that the edge of it might be controlled to change its course by either damming it up, by human activity or a boulder that is in the way. It's going to could change its course. And that edge could also just end up at the end of the gravity flow, and it doesn't have any more movement. It doesn't have any more water supply coming to it. It doesn't have any more oomph going on. So it will kind of just sort of peter out at the end there and maybe grow stagnant, maybe evaporate. And that's what happens if we don't continue to supply our flow in the growing edge there, as I see it. So kind of a definition in a way for the growing edge is it's like you're standing at the threshold of a doorway between this past of your life, this history, this experience of things as you knew it that Edward read to us about, and working towards taking that step over that threshold from the known and the familiar, even though, as Edward pointed out in his reading too, it may not have been the happiest life. It may not have been the most life-affirming or healthy way of living your life, but it was familiar. It's known, and we cling to the known. We're just kind of hardwired that way, because anything else that's unknown is maybe by definition almost fear-producing, right? So we're standing at the threshold there, moving from that known and the familiar into these uncharted waters of the unknown and the unfamiliar. And it's not so much, I don't think, that we have a lot of fear around it. We might call it fear. I think it's that we lack the spiritual confidence that I believe was also being talked about in your reading, Edward, that, you know, the universe has our back. And sometimes I have experienced in my life, I don't know about you guys, pushed me through the threshold, right? And what I call the cosmic 2x4, that I ended up not paying enough attention in enough times, and then all of a sudden that flow just washed me away, you know, with my growing edge. So maybe some of you have had that experience as well. But the feeling at that point is that you're taking a deep dive into those unknown waters because you didn't have an opportunity to kind of baby step into it. And so we have an opportunity to make choice. We're always at choice, but it's a matter of, do we have that choice as ours and something that we're consciously making, or is it being made for us? Now, we've had a lot of choices in the last couple of years been made for us, right? And we all have had that experience of, I don't know if you're like me, I'm like the little 2-year-old having the tantrum. I don't want to do it. I don't want it to be that way. It's not what I had preferred. It's not what I would choose if I were given the choice. So for some of us, and you can see if you check off any of these boxes, if any of this stuff resonates for you, some of us have had the growing edge be one of facing depression or anxiety about the future. Some of us have been wrestling with our own imperfections, our own, as we call them in 12-step, character defects, not wanting to believe that maybe they would be lifted from us if we just give them over to God. Some of us, our growing edge is developing healthy boundaries, both around our health, as well as with our relationships with other people, and sometimes substances and things. You may have a growing edge around learning how to feel your feelings. You know, you don't have to raise your hand, but I'll raise mine. That's certainly one of mine. Managing our frustrations. That's called acceptance. You know, developing intimacy, both to know ourselves as well as to be known and to know others in that intimate environment of heart to heart. And we've had the experience of having to learn to open up to grief. Not only the grieving of our own loss of sense of freedom in this whole past couple of years, maybe, but truly we have lost friends. You know, I don't think there's anybody in this room, especially given the fact of the the founding fathers of this center, that there's been grief out of loss and death. And we have had maybe a challenge around the growing edge of learning how to tame our inner critic. That shoulda, coulda, hadda, oughta, wanna. That committee in the brain that's just jabbering away unless we figure out a way to kind of work around it, silence it, keep it happy, let our inner child out. Any of those kinds of ways might be how we would deal with that. And of course, the dealing with the uncertainty that I mentioned. We might have a challenge around becoming more authentic, more willing to be the you that you are. When you're talking about the book is written to the first person as the you, like this thing called You by Ernest Holmes. If you read that book as I, and maybe this one can be read the same way, if you change the you to I, it deepens the meaning of what is being said. Maybe you have a little bit of a challenge around being a little more assertive in your life with yourself and with others. I have trouble being assertive with myself. I'm not the best disciplined person in the world. And maybe some of us are still working on healing from traumas. Some of those can be your growing edges because we gotta get our work done. You know, if we don't do the work does us. Like pushing me through the threshold, you know. Sometimes your growing edge can be an underdeveloped strength that looks like a weakness. So you might consider the things that you think you're bad at, that you have weaknesses around. What's the opposite of that if you were the opposite of that? And maybe that's your growing edge. Sometimes it shows up as a blind spot. You live on that river called denial. Yeah. And maybe there's a pattern of constant struggle in your life. Well, I invite you to look at the other side of the pattern of constant struggle as maybe a constant resistance on your part to something that's maybe what you're blaming that struggle on. Because as Carl Jung taught us, what you resist persists. So the pattern keeps repeating itself in that struggle for whatever you're looking at it with. It's financial, or it's relationships, it's your job. I can't ever get the right job. Nobody appreciates me. I mean, we got a lot of reasons, you know, that we can conjure up because we have this human brain that is capable of thinking up all kinds of things, what I call rational lies. Because we are rational beings on some level, and we know how to tell ourselves these lies. And then we tell them to others. I mean, we're always lying on some level, and maybe that's your growing edge, getting a little more authentic, a little more honest. In my life, you know, one of the things, I don't like to deal with administrative things and paper. And this week, my real estate office moved locations while I was gone to Mexico. So I had to go in, get my key to the new building, get my computers hooked up to the Wi-Fi and the printer and all the rest of that stuff. I don't know anything about how to do that kind of stuff, and I don't care to learn. So maybe I'm in denial because I just tell myself, well, I'm a people person, not a paper person. Nowadays, it's not even the paper, it's electronics, you know, so it doesn't alliterate anymore with people. So that may be something that I could take a look at as a growing edge. Not that I don't have a few dozen others, you know. And maybe you do too after hearing some of my list there. So there is this growing edge, this opportunity that Edward read to us about, that the universe and the spiritual growth is always offering us to grow. That we have I don't know if it's still used. There may be people in the room that can tell me, because I haven't been in the rooms around here for a while, but in the 12-step program, there's an acronym that's called FOG. And it's a effing opportunity for growth, is what that stands for. So sometimes these opportunities are not looked upon by us as positive, or as invited, or as joyful or delightful, or we have to choose the experience of it. And if you're not choosing the joy and the divine order and the God within it, choose again. Think about choosing again, because our experience is all that matters. What we tell ourselves, those rational lies that we tell ourselves, is really what forms our experience of living. And our experience of living entirely is up to us to choose. It's the, change your thinking, change your life. I bet you guys have never heard that before, right? Yeah. So, maybe your growing edge is a quest for purpose and meaning in your life that you don't feel is there. Or maybe you're still working and you want a vocation, or maybe an avocation, a hobby, or something that you can really feel is larger than you are, that you could give yourself over to in service of it, and that your deepest gladness would meet up with the world's deepest need. Wouldn't that be great? Sometimes it's about joining other people for common good. That's partly what we do here in community. We're trying to be the common good for each other and for the world and the universe at large. And we all know that each individual's healing is a healing on the larger level. Or maybe we're just looking for the strength to get out of bed in the morning and not have any pain. It could be any level up and down the scale for whatever it is, because until we get to that place, we can't get to the next one. So it's a matter of reaching a point at some level, I think, where, like Reverend Sandy said they used to do with the guys in the AIDS epidemic, when she and Marianne Williamson and Louise Hay were working in California, to teach these guys to give it the best shot with what you got each day. Because each day there might be less and less of a shot that you got. There's a guy that I read about online who has I saw that he had a podcast called The Growing Edge. I didn't go listen to it or look at it or anything, but in the description of it, it said that he describes himself as a writer, a teacher, an activist whose growing edge is learning how to live an engaged and creative life as an elder on the brink of everything. I think I feel that way. I could resonate with that, and I bet you a lot of you all could too, that I could really relate to that. So as I was thinking through this, my growing edge looks a lot, and maybe I ought to rephrase it like what Edward was reading in the reading. I'm willing. Am I willing? That was the question over and over again. Are you willing? Are you willing? And if you turn around and say, am I willing? Am I willing? So my growing edge looks a whole lot like asking people to do for me. So the question is, am I willing? Am I willing to take the risk to do for me what I do for them, which is support them in their work, tell the world about what they're doing? My growing edge looks a whole lot like, am I willing to refrain from judgment of myself and others? Am I willing to let go of the fact that maybe they or I myself are not living up to my standards? My growing edge might look a lot like, am I willing to learn from those, and this was in your reading too, whose life view or whose worldview is dramatically different from mine? It was said in different words in the reading, but that's the same concept, I think. My growing edge looks like, am I willing to let go of resentments of others who I think have what I want and I don't have it? And maybe they didn't work for it as hard as I think I worked for it, Those things that are just aggravating us in the brain, that committee in the brain all the time. My growing edge might look like, am I willing, am I willing to trust that there is a God of my understanding, a power greater than I, that has my back while I take this deep dive into the waters of the unknown? Is there life support at the end of that, that the divine has in mind for me? When that threshold looks more like the precipice into the abyss, right? And a lot of times it feels that way, it looks that way. But what I want to also mention to you today is that aside from helping you maybe identify a little bit about why you have a growing edge, what you want to do with it, and what it could be, I want to offer up the possibility that we have a couple of things in common, no matter what you've identified as your growing edge, that are helpful in the first step of identifying the growing edge, and a tool that we can use all along all the steps of the way as we move through the situation. Because no matter whether it's what I call the pain of the past, or the pain that pulls you, that just, drags you kicking and screaming into this next phase of whatever your great yet to be might be, or if it's the passion that you have concluded that you have for something that is pulling you, that's the pain that pushes, the pain that pushes you, or the passion that pulls you into your next level of the growing edge, that maybe might cause you to say, well, I'm going to change the course of that water. I'm going to put the ting sha over here and make it flow a different direction. Whether we have either the pain or the passion or both or some of each, what we have in common, I think, is a challenge in the very first step that I call discernment. It's a discernment to identify what and where is our growing edge, and that we all have that in common, that we have to decide, where is the line where I'm accepting what is, I'm loving what is, or I'm just complacent or lazy or unwilling to do the work. And then the tool that I want to, there's a common tool that I want to talk to you about too, that I think is available to help us. So when we're busy identifying our growing edge and we're in that challenge of, well, I'm loving what is, I'm accepting what is, this is what I'm being taught in Science of Mind, that the reality is the reality, and am I willing to accept that the truth that I perceive, that I resonate with, as Edward talked about in his reading, is truly the truth? My truth? The truth? Capital T truth? And whether I'm deciding that I'm ready for a change. It's like, I'm loving what is, I'm perfect, whole, and complete like I am, but I'm ready for more. I'm ready for something at the growing edge that takes me to the next level. Or if I don't make those choices, then I feel like I've just stepped into that complacency that I talked about. We have that decision to make before we can make any of the rest of them. So I think we all have that part of it in common, no matter what you've decided is your growing edge. And the other piece of it is that we accept that perfection in others as well. And maybe they're ready for more, but that ain't our job. Okay? So it's the divine order in everything that we see. Everything and in everyone. And from that place of divine order and seeing the perfection in it all and accepting it, that gives us what Reverend Sandy calls the wiggle room. That gives us the opportunity to move. Because while we're not in acceptance, we're stuck. We're stuck. So it may not be easy to accept, to forgive ourselves and to forgive others. And that's part of the work too, before you can move to the next level. So it's always about deciding, what am I willing to do? What am I willing to risk? What am I willing to do? What am I willing to become? It's about overcoming and overcoming and overcoming whatever we're identifying is in our way, because it's on our way. Think about that. If it's in your way, it's on your way. It's yours to do. So the only way that I know of that we could all choose the same tool that helps us to move through the challenge of just walking across the threshold easily or taking the deep dive into the waters of the unknown is letting go of our willingness, letting go of our unwillingness to freeze ourselves up. And I want to invite you all to have a little bit of an experience with me here, a little exercise that I'd like for you to do. And first I want to tell you something and see if you observe it when we do the exercise. Is there anybody in here that does not believe that there's this mind-body connection? Do we believe that there's a mind-body connection? Can I get a witness on that one? Yeah. And, yeah, thanks for raising your hand back there. And so we have this mind-body connection, and we are of the belief that the mind is what's controlling it all. It's controlling the body. It's controlling what we're doing, how we're moving, whether we're healthy, whether we're not healthy. All these things are connected up into that mind. And then what is it that controls the mind? There is an element to the body that works in the background there, controlling the mind. And I want to submit to you that the primary element of that is breath, is the inspiration and the aspiration of life comes to us through the breath. So when we breathe in certain ways and we manage our breathing in certain ways, we can change the chemistry. Literally, the science proved this. We can change the chemistry in our brain. So we meditate. That's one of the things that we do to change the chemistry in our brain as well. But if you're able and willing to stand with me, I want to teach you a little exercise that you could do. You can do it sitting down easily as well, but I think you get more oomph out of it by standing up. And it's a real quick thing. So we're going to think about something that maybe you're a little bit anxious about. I don't care if it's whether you think the dish you brought for potluck is going to be acceptable, or whether you've got something to do this afternoon, or you got something tough next week at the office to deal with, or relationships in your life. I want you to think about something that you might be a little anxious about. And then we're going to take a couple of breaths in, short, quick, in through the nose, like that. And then we're going to take a little bit longer one, out breath, a little sigh with it. So we think about what we're anxious about. You got it? You feel a little bit of going on there? Okay, now. Keep doing it. 2 quickies in through the nose and 1 out through the mouth. Okay, now let's check in. You can sit back down if you want. But check in and see if you feel even the slightest calming from that. Yeah. And you don't have to be all that obvious about it. If you're driving in the car or whatever, you can do it. Nobody else is there with you. Maybe your kids, don't scare them. But if you're going into a meeting, go into the bathroom and first. Or if you're looking at the next thing that you need to do on the list that you made up, because I invite you to consider your growing edge, identify it, write out something about what it is, and write out something about what it'll look like when you're at the next growing edge and you're in that one. Have any of you ever seen the video Joshua in the Box? You can find it on YouTube, Joshua in the Box. Joshua is kind of like a sort of a dinosaur in a way. It's a cartoon. It's a drawing, a cartoon drawing kind of a thing. And Joshua's in the box. He's beating on the outsides of the box. He's trying to figure out, is there any way to get out of here, get out of here, get out of here. And he finally finds a window or door, and he opens that, and he steps out to freedom, the church to freedom, right, Doug? And he only did discover it's a different box. It's a bigger box, but it's a new box. Anyway, so you follow Joshua through getting out of the box for a while. But that's the kind of way that I think our lives come to us. We move from one thing, and for a very brief while we think, oh yeah, good, that's done. We're all that in a bag of chips now. Till the next thing comes along. And it could be something that isn't even our growing edge. You know, we have the same benefit of the breath exercise if all of a sudden you're finding yourself in a circumstance that requires some urgent, quick action in a situational circumstance, not of your making, perhaps, but something where it might be yours to do. You know, I always say it's not about looking for what's in it for me for the moment. It's about looking for what's in me for the moment, and whether it's mine to do or not. So we don't fall into complacency. We use that tool when you have the opportunity and you think about it. That's it, the awareness to think about it, right? To think of something you're anxious about, or as you are thinking about something you're anxious about, and stop. It's a pattern interrupter from neuro-linguistic programming. And do that breath. It not only interrupts the pattern, but it also does shift your physiology and the brain chemistry there. So our breathing can control that if we choose to take it. So what I have learned in the 12-step program is that these changes don't happen overnight. We're not going to be well tomorrow. Whatever our growing edge is, it's probably not going to be instantaneous that we're going to have the change. But once you've made a decision about the change, it's about taking it moment by moment, day by day. And in the 12 steps, the one day at a time. It's what shows us the opportunity that we've taken to improve. We've made a little baby step through the threshold, maybe, each day, one day at a time, one moment, 1 hour at a time, whatever it might end up having to be. And at the end of that, we're able to see the improvement. It's the progress, not perfection. It's not about being the perfectionist or looking always for the perfection in something. It's about looking for the progress or the improvement. That's where we build the confidence, the spiritual confidence, the physical confidence, if we're, moving our health ways, whatever we're doing. Each day that we make an improvement on it, as tiny as it is, Norwood Yamini used to tell me, it's the smallest doable increment is what we can focus on. The smallest doable increment. Emphasis on the doable. What you're willing to do. What you're willing to risk. No matter how small it is. Once you've taken that little baby step and you did it, you're on to the next one. So the 12-step program has taught me that, and the universe has taught me that it has my back. So that while I'm doing the little baby steps on the lower level and the human level and the physical level or whatever level that may be, the 3D world, the universe is making me available to the leaps and bounds. As the Course in Miracles teaches us, no order in miracles, and things can happen. So it's a lot of times our life looks like, well, look at the people who are stars in the singing world, for instance, that look like they were overnight wonders, right? Well, they were overnight wonders out of multiple nights of one night gigs. It can happen suddenly. So it's slow and then sudden. Sometimes the changes come in. My phone keeps changing and getting out of the screen, so I have to come back and then scroll through it again. But I wanted to leave you today with a few quotes that might be somewhat inspirational between Ernest Holmes and Joseph Campbell. The hero's journey. And this is also a part of what I think the reading was about. Are you willing to take the journey? Because you're on it anyway. Are you just willing to take it with a conscious intention behind what you're doing, saying, believing? So Joseph Campbell says, we must let go of the life we have planned. This is pretty much right out of the beginning of your reading, right, Edward? We must let go of the life we have planned so we can accept the one that is waiting for us. And then he suggests, too, that you find a place inside where there's joy and work that joy because it will burn out the pain. And Ernest, in the very beginning chapters of the Science of Mind text, and I have to put my glasses on for this one because it's tinier. This is in chapter 3. The first 4 chapters of the text are like, what it is, how to use it, what it does, this kind of thing. So this was the little end of the chapter here of chapter 3 says there's no limit to thought. And at the very end of it, it says, here and now, we are surrounded by and immersed in an infinite good. How much of this infinite good is ours? All of it, in capitals. All of it. And how much of it may we have to use? Once again, in capitals. As much of it as we can embody. So I'm suggesting that we do the work. The way we embody is to have the experience and to choose our experience. And the last of what I wanted to tell you about with Joseph Campbell, then I have to go back again and scroll, I'm sorry. Now I've got too far. He says, the cave that you fear to enter is the one that holds the treasure you're seeking. And if we find the deeper powers within ourselves come when life seems to be its most challenging. And at the end he says, and if you feel like you're falling, dive in. Namaste, thanks. Am I doing the prayer? Okay. Yeah. You know, I forget about these things. I have, and these other things that are going on in my lives, you know, I have somebody in Mexico that does them, and then when I speak at Center for Spiritual Living, usually Reverend Bonnie does them. So I'm like, forgetting. Okay, so this is my growing edge here today. Sorry about that. Judgment-free zone, right? Spiritual fitness. So we take a deep breath in right here, right now. Relax into your chair, into your seat, and release. Just release all of what has been said, what you felt at this moment today. Take a deep breath in and let that sigh out. And know that there is one life, one mind, one spirit that I choose to call God, whatever you choose to call it. It's okay too. And in this moment, here and now, in the essence and the presence of God as each of us, expressing God in our own individual way, in our own individualized and particularized way, with our own individual growing edge. We allow that connection with Spirit to show us, to guide us, to be a part of who and what we are as we overcome and become, moving into new identity as we move through the growing edge. As we swim in those waters of the unknown, we recognize that the waters are that immersion of the infinite good that Ernest Holmes wrote about. We are floating in that sea of infinite good, surrounded by it. It shows up all around us, every day in every way. As we make the decision to change something, even if it's to wash something different on your body in the shower tomorrow, we adjust. We make the space for change and newness and challenge and risk to come into our lives. In exchange for that change is a life maybe beyond our dreams, beyond our earlier imagination, but in alignment with the divine plan, in alignment with the plan perhaps that our soul made before coming to the incarnate. And at the same time, we allow for spontaneity, we allow for plans to be changed, we allow for the reality that it's a challenge to plan an inspired life. And through the faith of the guidance and the guardianship of Spirit, we're willing to allow. We become more willing each day as we work through our individualized growing edge. And we allow that water to be supplied to us from Spirit. We acknowledge that we are the faucet, but we're not the water. And that continual supply is ours. As much of it as we can embody. All of it that we can embody is ours today, here, now. And in great gratitude for the knowledge that this is so, that this is the truth with the capital T that we all resonate with, for this great philosophy of personal freedom and individualized consciousness that contributes to the world that works for everyone by elevating the consciousness of humanity. We accept our role in that. We know because there is a knower inside of us that knows. And I call that knower Spirit. I release these words into the law, knowing that as they have been spoken, they are so, they are true, they are acting in our lives at this very second, revealing themselves as the next second evolves. And in that revelation, we are healed. And so it is. Now, I'll turn the podium back over to you. Mm-hmm.
Edwin, could you turn off her microphone, please? Now we have number 2 in our guest musician special music.
Please stand by. Well, I invite everybody to sing along on this one too. Oh, and Edwin, we need you. I, right. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Yes, everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Way up on the mountaintop, I'm gonna let it shine. Yes, way up on the mountaintop, I'm gonna let it shine. Way up on the mountaintop, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. All around this world, I'm gonna let it shine. Yes, all around this world, I'm gonna let it shine. All around this great big world, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine.
We've just been a barrel of fun today. Oh, you may sit down and rest for a minute. All right. We're still doing our, we're still not passing the offering basket. It's in the back if you choose to put your gift in there. But we acknowledge and receive our virtual and in-person gifts, and we give thanks for the offerings already given and those we know we will be receiving, because we know that giving and receiving are both part of the one flow. We affirm that we are also part of that flow. We bless these gifts and know they are multiplied throughout our community. There are a number of folks who have contributed to today's production of this service. They're in the back, and we are grateful for their service. And lastly, stay around in the Zoom meeting. It'll probably be brief because the rest of us are going over to the social hall and having a potluck. So now please stand as you are able and read with us the benediction, and that followed by our congregational song. And again, both of these are on the handout. Spirit in the midst of us is mighty. Joy, peace, and eternal life are our true nature and flow through us into the world, and so it is.
Thank you.